All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got a full house today. We'll take roll call.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Kim Boland?
Present.
Commissioner Kim Boland. Commissioner Al Metcalf?
Present.
Commissioner Hannah Peterson?
Present.
Commissioner Vice Chair Ray Halby?
Present.
Let's see. Commissioner Matt Durant?
Here.
And Commissioner Philip Baker. Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
Good. So we have approval of minutes from April 4th. Make a motion to
I move the meeting of April 4th be approved.
I'd second that. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Approval of the minutes. No old business. So we'll move right to new business. So we have Cool PZ 180301. Proposed zoning amendment, changing the definition of qualifying patient caregiver cultivation location to mirror the requirements set forth by the Arizona Department of Health Services. Section 302 of the City of Coolidge zoning code is amended by modifying the following definition. I'm sorry. How's that, sir? Better? Can you hear me? Okay. The qualifying patient caregiver cultivation location. Qualifying patient caregiver location means any building, structure, or premises used for cultivation of marijuana by either a qualifying patient and or qualified caregivers who meet the following requirements. The cultivator is either a qualified patient pursuant to ARS 36-280-2801, 13, who has received his or her registry identification card from the Department of Health Services, or is a designated caregiver pursuant to the same statute, who has received his or her identification card from the Arizona Department of Health Services. The cultivation site is done only at the address approved by the Arizona Department of Health Services. The chairman will turn it over to Mr. Lopez.
Vice Chair Halby, this is as we've done before. We're just making some changes to the zoning code to come in line, in this case, with the Arizona revised statutes regarding cannabis cultivation. So all this is just bringing this section in line with the state statute. So, and I don't know if we have Tim Hansen, if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Director Lopez. Vice Chair Halby, Commissioners, Section 3 of this portion of our code currently puts a restriction of 25 miles on the designated cultivator for patients from dispensary locations. State statute only requires the patient live that distance from a dispensary and not their designated cultivator. I think each designated cultivator can have 5 patients. They grow it, non-profit. They're not necessarily the consumer, but their patients live this distance away. I think this was put in here erroneously when we enacted the statute, and it just kind of got carried over. So we're just mirroring what the state requires by removing the third condition on there.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, if you'd like, at this time, you could open up the public hearing, just ask to see if any comments are here, and close it up, and then answer any commission questions, and then take a vote.
Okay. We'd like to open it up to a public hearing.
And this is public hearing is strictly for the change in this specific item. It's not for the issue about the cultivation place. Okay, that'll be up next. Strictly for a change in the code. That's all. Doesn't look like you have any. So
No.
close.
So we'll close the public hearing.
Anybody got questions?
Anybody got anything else?
I have a question. You said something about that the patients of the caregiver have to live a certain distance from the caregiver?
From the dispensary location.
Okay.
For a patient to get a cultivation endorsement from the state, they must reside 25 miles from the nearest medical marijuana dispensary. And if they are that distance or further, they can grow their own. If they are unable to grow their own, they can designate a caregiver officially with the state, and that caregiver can grow for them.
And there's no distance limitation for that caregiver, except that they be 25, does the grower have to be 25 miles from the dispensary?
No, sir, he does not.
Does the patients that are going to receive the marijuana from those caregiver, the grower for the caregiver, the person that's growing it, is there a range how far they have to be from the grower?
There's none specified in state statute.
Only the person that's going to utilize the crop has to be 25 miles from a normal dispensary.
That is correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was confused. I didn't get that figured out. That's my only question, Vice Chair.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, make a motion.
I motion to approve Cool PZ 180301 as presented with the amendments discussed.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Nick?
Motion carries.
Motion carried. All right. Next on the agenda is Cool PZ 18408 CUP. And for this particular process, I'll recuse myself.
Okay, so go ahead.
I don't have a direct conflict, but I feel it is appropriate also to recuse myself.
Okay, great. We have a couple of members that are recusing themselves because of their relationship with the industry. So we're going to have Commissioner Kim Boland run item number 2 for us as the member. He's going to chair this portion of it, okay? So just so the public knows what's going on. Yes. Yeah, 4 of the 7 is majority. Yes, sir. Floor is yours, sir.
All right. First off, Director Lopez, Mr. Hanson, tell us this about this.
Okay, Commissioner, this is PZ 1804-08. It's a conditional use permit submitted by Robert Werman on behalf of Green Machine Holdings, LLC, for a medical marijuana cultivation facility located at 1119 South Attaway Road at the intersection of Attaway Road and Bond Avenue, I guess it's called, between Coolidge Avenue and the Pima Lateral Canal. And it's the parcel number is 202-34-005A, Resolution 1801. So this comes before you. Mr. Werman has submitted an application for conditional use permit, so he's coming to you, and you can call him up to the dais to ask him questions, and then if you'd like, open a public hearing to hear any comments from the public, so you can take those into account and then go from there. Then you can hear the comments, or if you'd like, you can open up the public hearing and let the public speak first, and then Mr. Werman can get up, and if he wants to respond to any of those, that would work too.
Okay. First, has the commission got any questions they want to ask before we open it up to the public? Al? No. Okay. I'd like to open this meeting to the public. If you will come to the podium, if you will state your name, please, and your address, and take turns. Scott, why don't you open it up, because maybe you can explain to us what we don't already know.
It may be better to let them get started so I can answer their questions. I am. Well,
And Scott, please, if you pull the mic up so I can hear you real well and we can record you. So,
we don't have any salt plants at the time, but what we're looking at is probably 2 greenhouses and a steel building. I will try to speak up. Check, check.
there you go.
But that's subject to change. Right now, we're at the point we're just trying to get so we can work over it.
I'm sorry, we need to have you at the podium to ask questions because it's all being recorded. So if
Tim,
you'll
do we
hold
have
on a
another mic we
second.
could pass around or something?
Well, take that one off the thing that you can hold it. But first you need to present. No, first you present, and then everybody gets a chance to go up. The mic's not going to go around.
Okay, then we want to go through the slideshow, Tim, or how do you want to do
Sure.
it?
So it should be noted that the item tonight is granting the use, potentially. If the item passes, the applicant would move on to a site plan review, which the same notifications would come out, and this would detail types of buildings, placements of buildings, parking areas, drainage, retention, and all these kind of things. But a lot of those items in that site plan require paying engineers to do stuff and a significant cost that most people don't want to spend until they know the use is allowed. We have a lot of things that require conditional uses of the city. Marijuana is one of them. Churches are other ones. Tire repair, lots of things like that. Mr. Warman?
We just want to go through the slideshow, Tim, or
Sure.
you want to read it?
Mm-mm.
You want me to read it?
Just not read it. Maybe just kind of cover it, what it is, through.
Basically, this is our permit requesting that
Put the mic up to your.
the conditional use permit to grow medical marijuana here on this property. As of right now, here's the property as it is. We're looking at a couple starting probably with a couple greenhouses in the back, and then a steel building near the current structure in the front for processing. Nothing will be growing outdoors. Has everybody seen a chance to see this and read through the permit? Okay. Everyone's had a chance to go through the permit and see it? Because I don't think we need to go through it again here, do we? I think we're best off passing this microphone around and let me answer any questions anybody has. But nothing's going to be growing outdoors. Everything's going to be fully secured. Like I said, a couple greenhouses to start, and then probably a steel building.
Excuse me, Mr. Warman, will the greenhouses be metal buildings that this is in? Or will they be something like you see at nurseries that's plastic covered?
They will be hard poly walls, plastic walls.
Okay, so are they see-throughable or light-through?
They're light throughable. You will not be able to see what's actually in there looking through them because they're kind of like frosted. They're not clear.
How
Those look
tall
like
are they?
We're probably looking at 7,000 to 8,000 square foot greenhouse.
How tall are they?
Oh, how tall are they? 16, 18 feet. Probably would. But again, we haven't decided what type style of greenhouse we're doing there. It could be smaller, but probably about 16 feet.
I have a couple, just a second, of him. Tim, the height restriction for this property, if the variance was allowed, is how high?
I believe in agriculture it's 28 feet,
28 feet, okay. This property is how wide?
150 feet wide.
And the setbacks are 50 feet off each side, so they have a buildable area of 50 feet down the center of this property?
That is correct.
Okay.
More than that.
I think it's only
About
150
70,
wide.
170 in, well, it varies, but I think it's about 170. But either way.
I'm just trying
Yeah,
to get a picture in my mind, Mr. Warman, of what this is going to look like if I was driving down Boffman Road or if I was anywhere in that area. I'm going to be looking at a 16-foot tall, possibly, potentially a 16-foot tall or higher building that'll be down the center of this property.
Approximately 70 by 100.
And it's going to be, how long are you envision each greenhouse? You said 7,000 square feet?
Yeah, so 70 by about 100 square feet.
So I'm sorry, what?
70 by 100,
70 by 100. Okay.
70 by 100 square feet. It is. Well, parts of it. The part we're looking at in the back is 170 foot across the back. And it gets a little narrow coming up towards the front, and those buildings up there will be a steel building eventually, and won't be that large. It'll be much smaller. But the two greenhouses we're looking at are about 70 or whatever is going to fit in there by about 100. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The back half of
Does
that.
anybody else have a question for Mr. Warman?
Just a quick comment. We will, commissioners, the staff, we have some recommendations if you do look at approving it that don't allow a greenhouse. That would go for metal building with a scrubber to clean the air so you don't have the smell coming out. So that would be part of a initial staff would ask you to consider if you go forward with this.
So marijuana can be grown inside of a steel building?
Yeah,
As
and
what
all
they're
the
doing out at
all the other facilities we have in town are in steel buildings.
Okay.
So
Completely.
The caveat is the greenhouses are an allowed structure to be grown in. It has to be addressed during the site plan process. There is another cultivation facility in town that has 90,000 square feet of greenhouse approved on a site plan. It has not been built yet, but it is approved. They are considered an enclosed building.
I'm just thinking about the security of the building, since you have a valuable product there, I take it, a street valuable product at least, and the security of that and how much danger there is of breaking in and entering and
It would probably be just as difficult to get into a steel building as it would one of these greenhouses. The way they're constructed, and again, the whole property will have cameras all over the facility. No one's going to come and go from that property without being noticed.
Okay, again, Councilman, do any of you have a question for him? We may come back to him again, but do you have any questions at this time? No? Okay. If I could turn the mic over to this young lady, if you would stand up at the podium.
If I would ask that you let me sit. I have MS. It's very hard for me to stand. So.
I would need to have your name and your address.
My name is Deborah Jackson. I'm at the very first house on Bond Street, 2688, or Bond Avenue. First of all, I would like to ask you a question, if it's a greenhouse, because my understanding was going to be an enclosed building, and so my mind, I guess I was thinking it was going to be an enclosed metal building. My concern right now then, and let me ask you this, if it's going to be a greenhouse, do you intend to have the top open? You don't.
Deborah? Excuse me.
I'm pretty loud. I don't need it mic.
I know.
We need it for the recording.
For the recording. Deborah, I need you to ask the commission questions, and then we will direct them to...
I apologize. I didn't know how that worked.
I'm new at it too, so we're both good, okay?
Okay. I'm concerned about lighting. So if it's going to be open, my envision would be like in a building like this. So the lights we would never see because they would be enclosed. But now if you're talking polycarbonate facility, lights are going to be shining, and I know from doing a little research that in the growing stages they're under lights 24 hours a day. So this facility may only be open from 7 to 7, but those are going to have lights on those plants 24 hours a day while they're growing. And I'll form that in a question if you don't mind asking me, is that true? So that's one of the questions. I'll have more, but that's what I'd like to start off asking, because this kind of threw me for a loop to hear him say it's going to be greenhouses. That wasn't our understanding. We thought it was going to be metal buildings. So I have plenty of other concerns, but now I'm adding one to the list of having lights on. I don't want to live next to a ball field, that has 24-hour stadium lights, and that's what I'm envisioning happening.
Can I go back and forth like this, legitimately?
should go to different people that everybody can talk for, get up on the mic, and then so everybody has a chance to have their
Well, I'll
say.
get everybody on, but can I get this direct question answered?
I think
You can, sure.
Ms. Jackson should finish her list of questions.
Okay.
All right, that's the question I have. Let me start by saying I was the author of the letter that you may have on there. So I'm not going to go through everything, all my concerns again. You already have those in writing. Our concern is, we still feel, my husband and I feel, that this should be in an industrial area where the others are, or on the outskirts of town, not in a neighborhood. And I know that we are zoned agriculture, but we are indeed a neighborhood. We have 5 houses along Bond Avenue. So we are a neighborhood, and we're a neighborhood of elderly and children. So to me, it just doesn't seem a fitting thing. Having said that, if it meets all y'all's criteria, and if it passes, there's certain things that we would ask, and I've given all y'all a copy of some things that I would like to have as a condition of the permit, not going into the second phase after this has been approved, and then, oh, well, maybe it'll get done, maybe it doesn't. I want it to have enough teeth that if it's not done, then the permit gets pulled. So I'm not going to read it. You guys all have a copy of that, of my concerns.
We do.
But the new concern now is this greenhouse, because, well, I can tell you one of the main things I'm worried about is the noise as well, because I know you've got HVAC, you've got air conditioners, you've got humidifiers, you've got fans that go constantly. So how much noise is this going to generate? That's another concern I have. But well, I'll let him answer the questions, or I don't know if you want us to pass this on or how you want to do this.
I'd like to know if anybody else would like to speak to the man in the black hat. If you'll step up to the mic over the podium, tell me your name and your address, please.
My name is Dustin Cantrell. My address is 2724 East Bond. I'm the second home down the road. My concerns are along with her as well, but I have 3 children, ages 12, 7, and 3, and I have concerns about fences going up in these buildings and having to explain to them what it is. I feel that this is too young of an age for them to be exposed to marijuana. I know that it's becoming legal and it's going to become a problem, or something that's known to them, but I really don't feel that exposing it to them at this age is something that should happen. Another concern I have, the biggest concern for me, is security. Like you said, this is something that holds street value. There's a chance that somebody may try to come and either, get into the property. It may cause traffic to see if they can get into the property. The road that runs right between us is the only road that they would be able to do that from. So that's going to cause traffic in front of my home, and the possibility of, dangerous people. That's something that we've never had to deal with in the 9 years that I've owned my home. And I don't feel that this permit should be granted based on the fact that there are security concerns. There's children in the neighborhood. They have grandchildren that come to visit. And I think my final concern would be the fact that this is going to take a lot of water. Reading up on it, some of these places that are 7,000, 8,000 square feet go through 400 gallons of water a day. That could eventually affect my water table. The water table currently, I just had to replace my well after being in the home for 9 years. When it was checked, when I had my well inspection done, the standing water, or the initial water line, was a lot higher than it is now. I believe it dropped 50 feet, 60 feet. Now that could be something that's affected solely by a dry climate, or maybe it's something from the use from the extra housing. But I feel that another added, something this size, something that could go through that much water per day, could really affect our water table. And eventually, my future may have to re-drill a new well. And that's not something that I'm set for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cantrell. Who's next? Go ahead, Noah. Mr. Hitchcock, sir.
My name's Noah Hiscox. I'm a farmer, a local farmer. I actually farm the land across the street here. My concern is one of safety. And if you just look to Colorado, where marijuana has been legalized for quite some time, what happens often, not just rarely, but often, farmer gets started, sets one of these up, and the drug cartels will come in and kill him, take him over. In the little town of Simla, which is just a little rural town, actually a little smaller than Coolidge, 6 months ago there was a farmer killed. And in that little town, which was a perfect little, quaint little grow up your children town, crime has skyrocketed. So folks, you just look across the border at Colorado and you can see the damage that's being done to communities. So this is not something that's just no big deal, we're helping people. I'm all, that's wonderful, but there are some ramifications that are serious. And I feel for you people. I live about 1.5 miles away, which is too close for me as well. I can imagine living right next door. And I'm all for an entrepreneur. I'm a farmer. Whoever is, I don't know the gentleman that's applying for this permit. Yeah, Scott, I believe it was. Yeah. I mean, I applaud you. That's great. Many times my farmer friends have said, we just need to grow some marijuana because we can't make any money growing cotton or alfalfa. But I will tell you that before you make your decision, I would ask you to look at Colorado and look at the serious problems that they're having, where they've had these facilities put in. So,
all right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next to speak? Step up, please. State your name and address.
My name is Fran Tupner. I live at 2806 East Bond. I'm the 5th house from Attaway. I have quite a few concerns. I'll just start naming them. They're not necessarily in any priority. One of my concerns is the water. Marijuana cannot use the canal water. You're going to have to use our well water. That means you're going to be using our aquifer. That's going to lower our well water. And that means you're going to be using gallons and gallons of it. We on this street and the neighbors are going to be short on water. And it takes a lot of water to grow marijuana. And you have to constantly have pure water. Even you're going to have to install not only using the well water from the well that's on the property now, you're going to have to put in an RO system to purify the water, then add the chemicals, and then recycle and recycle and recycle and continuous pure water. Now, how much water is that going to take over and over and over again? Now, our water is going to disappear. And besides that, you add chemicals to that water. Where did those chemicals go when you get rid of the old water? Because marijuana cannot use anything but pure water because it will grow mold. And then you have to get rid of that mold or you don't have a good crop. It has to be tended constantly. That's 24 hours a day supervision. Not only guarding from cartels, criminals, the bad element, but the purity of the crop. And that's a concern of yours. You want to grow a good crop. So you have to have the chemicals, the water, and all of that pure. Now that's constant. Now there's the traffic. You don't have a pure road down into that property. So that means you are going to be using our street. That's an easement. It's not a street. It's not maintained by the city of Coolidge. It's maintained by us, the residents. So, are you going to fix it for us? Are you going to keep the criminal element out? And I have grandchildren that visit. Other people do. We have small children that live on the street. And who wants to stare at big buildings when we moved into this community for the neighborhood? You know, if we have a crop of corn across from us, fine. We can see across the corn, and there's no cartel going to come up and steal the corn. But marijuana? Let's get real. My husband and I visited 4 of the other facilities in Coolidge that grow marijuana. They are not in residential areas. They are out in the outskirts, in metal buildings, not greenhouses, metal buildings, no neighbors around, out on their own, no neighbors around, get me. 2 of them are in the industrial park. No neighbors, industry. The other one is at the end of Coolidge Avenue. Nothing. Country. The other one is at 11 Mile Country, 11 Mile Corner, pure country. Why do you want to put a marijuana in the middle of the neighborhood? I don't know what else to say. I'm against it. And I think our neighbors are too. And I mean, that's, anybody else can speak that wants to.
Hold on just a sec. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that'd like to come to the podium and speak? Just a second. Please state your name and your address for us.
Yes, my name is Jose Gomez. I live at 2784 East Vine Avenue. Were you guys trying to put the plant up there? You know, the way I see it, Mexico's bringing marijuana up here every damn day, by tons. Why in the hell do you guys buy the stuff from them instead of trying to ruin our place? When you put that stuff up there, it's going to drop the value of our properties. A lot of them people buying the properties, they're from our state, snowbirds. You think they're going to come up there and try to buy my place next to the crack house? Hell no. You know, that's a residential, it's not farm, I mean, that's or nothing. So I don't want it up there. And then if the law's in favor, what are you guys doing? Put it here in front of the city hall, I mean the police department. There's a big area up there. There's plenty of areas for you guys to put your buildings up. And then at the same time, all them outsiders, out of state people, they can come through there and see the place and say, hey, look, we got a crack house here, let's stop and buy some stuff. You know, this is ridiculous.
Sir, I want to make it clear
Thank you.
that this is, they are not going to sell or distribute any kind of
This
medicine.
is America. This is not Mexico.
I know where I live, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission? Just a minute, let her, and then you can tell me the question. I'm making a list of questions.
My
here.
name's
Might-
Danielle Halby. I live at 1250 West Wilson, and I am a cancer patient. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 4 years ago. I went through chemo, 12 weeks. I went through radiation 5 weeks, every single day. I never threw up once. I started marijuana. The medicine that comes from the marijuana. No psychoactive, it doesn't make me high, but it took away my cancer. I have 6 months left to take my medication, and I'm clean of all of it. Whether you believe or not, cartel is there with heroin, meth, cocaine, there's cartel there also. Marijuana is not the worst thing in this world. It helps people with cancer, and it helps a lot of people. I don't know if any of you have been to the cancer center in Mesa. When you pull up to the parking lot, there's not a place to even park there because so many people have cancer because of all the GMOs and all the stuff that's grown in our food. You should be more worried about that than you are marijuana.
Thank you. Just a second. Mrs. Jackson, go ahead and speak up really loud.
Okay, I will. I just would ask you to ask Mr. Norman if this property purchase is a done deal already, if he owns the property already, or is it like a contingency? If he does own it already, what are his other plans if this permit does not go through? What's the plan?
I will make a note of that. Is there anybody else? Oh, thank you.
Ma'am, I am so sorry for your cancer. And I am not against marijuana as a medicine. I lost.
Hey, no, whoa, stop. Stop now.
Let me speak, ma'am.
There'll be no directed except to me.
I feel so very sorry for you. I really do. I lost my youngest son 2 years ago to cancer. He died at the age of 49. Cancer throughout his entire body, and he left 2 small grandchildren. And one of the medicines that he used as one of the last hopes was marijuana. The marijuana oil.
Right. All right.
And I helped his wife dissolve the oil with the coconut oil to make suppositories for him.
Mrs. Tepper.
I am not against marijuana. I am against growing it in my neighborhood.
Okay.
There are 4 facilities already out in the country. Grow it somewhere besides my neighborhood.
Okay.
I'm not against it. I lost my son. I'm not against marijuana.
Okay. The discussion is not on whether or not marijuana is good or bad. The question is whether or not a variance should be issued for this property in which they want to produce a marijuana facility.
Liz South, 9655 North Valley Farms Road. Besides the issue of putting a facility like this in a residential area, being somewhat familiar with the terrain of that area, my concern becomes with fencing. That area is benched, so this particular property sits lower than the road that these folks live on. So what is going to be the allowable height of the fence to keep people out? I mean, if it's only 6 foot, that road's got to be at least 2 foot higher than that property. 3. So then you're talking about a 3 foot tall fence on that road. That doesn't seem like that's probably going to be very secure. And my next problem would be, if you go and allow this to be in a residential area, then you're setting precedents for the rest of the city. I'm not sure that this is what we want to start in Coolidge.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Hitchcox?
Thanks for letting me speak again. I neglected to mention there is a requirement. EPA has a requirement. I'm sure I'll just say Scott because I can't remember your last name. Is aware of it. For every 2,000 square foot of building, requires 1 acre for the chemical wastes that are produced. So I'm sure he has enough land there to do that, but it's also a concern. And I'm also very sorry for your cancer, ma'am. I'm also, I have a great friend that every day he eats marijuana cookies just to get by. Again, we're not against that. The problem is where the facilities go and the potential for some serious crime that can come in and has come in Colorado where it's been going on. So it's just finding the appropriate place to do this. And obviously nobody wants it in their own backyard. That's all I wanted to.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cantrell, you wanted to speak again?
All right, I was just reading over excuse me, I was reading over this a little bit again, and I just wanted to point out, as far as the security aspect of it goes, there's a part in here that says the cultivation facility will have a monitored alarm system with panic buttons in the cultivation and security rooms. Key employees will have a mobile panic buttons. The company will follow all rules, policies, and procedures set forth by the Arizona Department of Health Services. My question is if it's safe and if there's not going to be a criminal element, no problem with the cartel, anything like that, why should there be panic buttons? This is obviously a concern that can come up. I work for a private prison in Florence that houses federal inmates, and this is something that I deal with every day. I see these people's charges, as far as what they've been, whether it be trafficking people, marijuana, all this other stuff. There's a lot of this stuff that is a lot closer to home than anybody else in here knows. So that's my biggest concern, and I just wanted to point out, as far as the security aspect goes, it's right here, they're putting panic buttons, and that raises an eyebrow for me. That's my
All right,
addition.
thank you. Would you like to speak? Please state your name and your address.
James Peterson, 341 West Northern.
Okay.
Convenience stores have panic buttons. It's to keep people safe, and you don't worry about convenience stores, right? Right?
Would anybody else like to speak?
Ken? I'd like to speak as
Okay.
the general public, if I may.
We'll let this other gentleman go first, if that's all right.
My name's Joe Wright. I live at 1021 South Attaway. I don't think most of us have a problem with medical marijuana. That's not the issue. And I'd like you to think about, where you live. If you're single, it's not a big deal. But if you're a family person, you got children, you got grandchildren, make marijuana, make it all legal. Take the criminal element out of it, but we can't do that tonight. I'm for making everything legal. Tax it, stop the criminality, bingo. You solve the problem, but we can't seem to get to that point in our country. So we're going to have crime, we're going to have cartels, and you saw it with prohibition and alcohol. When it was prohibited, the mafia and the violence was rampant. As soon as it was legalized, it stopped, and then they went to something else. They moved to other drugs. Anyway, I'm 70 years old. I finally get my house paid for. I tell people, man, I got me a cool place. I'm out in the country, pecan trees. I got a view of the south, 40 miles to the mountains. And you can understand my pain. Cece, and I have a little difference here. And I told him, he knows my son. Cece, I don't disagree with my wife has benefited from the product. She'd been in pain for 2 years straight until she started taking CBD. Bingo, started sleeping at night for the first time in 2 years. But that's not the issue. It's this zoning deal here where we're going from general industrial to general business. I don't understand the ramifications of that, but what am I going to have, a car lot next to me then? Or we're going to have you can understand how we feel. Most of us are in the country for a reason. Anyway, the rest of the items on there, I'm concerned about our well water. We don't have city water. If we have to put a well in and go deeper, that's a financial hardship for all of us, especially those of us who are a little older, maybe on a fixed income. And that's just ramifications we got to think about: the safety, the dust, the road, all that stuff. I'm sorry, you just picked a bad spot. My wife and I have a difference of opinion. Hey, I'm fine with it, and I am too, to the point that it destroys our property values, our quality of life that we've worked, some of us, a lifetime for. Thank you.
Jim Tebner, 2806 East Bond Avenue. My wife spoke earlier. I might hit on a couple of things she did, and I apologize. One of the first things we did was one of our neighbors found out where there were some more other marijuana factories, whatever you want to call them. One was at Kenworth Industrial Park, but there's two there. That's an industrial park. We didn't see any houses. The second one we seen was at the end of Coolidge Road as you go west at Coolidge Avenue and McQuarrie, if I pronounce that right. The other one, we believe, is at the northwest corner at 11 Mile Corner, and everyone knows where 11 Mile Corner is. Now, I too am concerned that these are in residential areas. We got a residential area out there. I also am concerned about the water, the runoff, etc. We all have wells. We're not dependent on Coolidge for our water. We have our own wells. I also am concerned about the criminal element. Yeah, I got a 45, I got a M14, I got all that stuff, but that ain't the point. The point is, they come in at night. There's a criminal element. I don't care what you say. When my wife and I bought this place back in 2010, we spent all the money we had, except in savings, to buy it, cash paid. We bought it straight out. Since then, we put a lot of money into it, including we almost took away all our savings. So technically, we've got everything we own in that piece of property. Now, which one of you people, if this goes through, is going to compensate me when I sell my piece of property? Because I'm not going to live across from this. I don't care. I had cancer too, ma'am, and I appreciate and I have due respect for you. I'm a cancer survivor since 2013. I have nothing against marijuana. Nothing at all. I don't do it. I did it one time. That was 40 years ago. I'm 77. I got nothing out of it except if I'd have kept on it, I'd have been a 400-pound blimp, because all I wanted was the munchies. That's it. But as far as curing cancer, I question whether cancer would have, or whether marijuana would have cured my cancer, because I know where mine was, and marijuana wouldn't have cured it. But that's beside the point. I had a doctor that wanted to prescribe marijuana for me, and I said no, I don't want it. Number one, I haven't ate in 5 years. I got a what they call feeding tube. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm alive because I went through the cancer. I went through the operation. I went through the radiation. I went through the chemo. I went through all that crap. I watched my son die, and he was 39. Marijuana was the last thing for him. It wouldn't have solved it. It wouldn't have made him well, but that's beside the point. It helped him deal with it. It helps people deal with cancer. It isn't a cure-all.
Mr. Tempter, I don't mean to cut you off, but we need to stay on focus on the topic.
Okay,
And
okay.
I appreciate the loss of your son, and I appreciate your still. But let's stay on the topic on why we don't want or do want this
I'll
here.
get back on it now. If this goes through, I'm putting my house up for sale. Which one are you going to pay me the difference? I've already talked to a realtor what it's worth. I've got to I want to know who's going to pay the difference, because I'm not, my value's going to go down. So somebody's going to pay for it. Who? I'll end up being. I just hope there ain't any hands being greased on this whole damn thing. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to approach? All right.
Good evening. My name is Rick Solaris. I'm 2688 East Bond, or West East Bond. That's my wife, Deborah Jackson. First house on Bond. The only thing I'm going to add, you've heard a lot of comments from our neighbors. I know our neighbors have been contacting us. We've been talking all of our concerns, and you heard them. The only thing I want to bring up, at some point in time, that land was zoned so you could put single-family housing, because that all used to be ag land. That all used to be fields. So somebody came before this commission and said, hey, we'd like to build houses, and you guys approved it. You made it a neighborhood. I know we're ag, but you made it a neighborhood. And I just need you to keep that in mind, because it's now like you're changing the game. Just like Jim said, I was a snowbird. My wife and I had a lot of conversations, and we decided to move here permanently, because that's the kind of place we want to be. Rural, little land, nice neighbors, a few neighbors. We don't have a subdivision. And that's what we wanted. And then I get this letter saying, hey, we want a cultivation center. And like it's been said, my grandkids come over all the time. I'm concerned. So just think about what's the precedent you're setting if now you can go into neighborhoods and rezone or change the zoning so you can accommodate some things that I think have a better chance somewhere else, outside on the the limits. I understand if there's a great deal on land, I'm the first one to buy. Believe me, I have quite a few houses that I understand a great deal, and I understand an entrepreneur trying to think of, hey, here's a product, but not in a neighborhood. Not in a neighborhood. If it is, put it in yours.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Dustin Hintz, and I'm just here on behalf of MKG Management. I just wanted to confirm that you guys got Mike's letter and had a chance to read through it. So they own 2663 East Jolyn Way, which is the 16 acres to the south.
I don't know that I have that letter.
It would have been the letter on the desk when you got here. It came in after the packets went out.
It's a single sheet like this.
Yeah, I saw one.
Yeah, it's two pages.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to make sure the council had a chance to review it.
And where is this located in relationship to the? South of the property?
It's the entire 16 acres south of the property.
Okay.
And so that they had already touched on most of the economic factors and changing the game after somebody had basically purchased a 16-acre piece for a couple $100,000, and now they walk outside and see a couple metal buildings, but the neighbors already had that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Any other people would like to comment? Could I see by a show of hands how many people are in the audience that would not support the change in zoning? By a show of hands? Because some of you didn't speak, and so I just wanted to find out where you stood. All right. Thank you. All right. I now move to close the public hearings. All right. Discussion by the commission. Matt?
So I'll introduce myself. I'm Matthew Duran, Matt Duran. My mom calls me Matthew, and my wife and I'm in trouble. But I think we've been down this road before. a while back, we had another company approach us on the gin across from the ball fields with a similar proposal. And I think there were some different faces on the we're not a council commission, I'm sorry, and it wasn't as packed as this. And so I think we've kind of we set a precedent, but no one lives in as close proximity as that gin down the road here. So I in good conscience couldn't support this as it stands, and I'd like my esteemed gentleman over here with the city to take a look at the minimum distance of the already in operation commercial grows in the city and use that maybe as a rule of thumb that we're not going to get any closer than that, if that's a possibility. Because I'm all for free market. I'm not on big on taxes or anything. I think every man's got an opportunity to make his way in life. But I also I know folks that live out there. It's a cool piece of property. I'd live there if I could. It's really neat. I live here in town, but I just I couldn't support that. That's my opinion. But I do believe that if our little city is going to be the hub for marijuana grow in Arizona, that we got to get in the front of this and make these decisions before we have to sit here with some upset folks. I will tell you this: I'm a cop in Casa Grande, been a detective there, and I've got my wife who's got the worst migraines you can imagine, and we're talking about medical marijuana. So I know it does good. I'm not talking about the puff pass. I mean taking the good stuff out of it and putting that chemical in your body. You know, I do, like I said, I do support people making their way. You know, our country's built on entrepreneurs, but I know there's some families and kids that live out there, and I wouldn't want those folks will be on their bad side. I'll tell you right now. So that's all I got to say.
Anyone else want to address?
Mr. Chair, if I could just respond to Mr. Duran, Commissioner Duran. Yeah, we actually because it meets the requirements under ag for submittal. That's why the conditional use permit portion exists. It brings it before you to see if you decide. It doesn't let it in by right, or else that would be like they could just build it. But it allows it through a conditional use for you to consider it, like you did over at Coolidge and McRae, where there's no houses. And then you can look at whether or not it's appropriate. And this is why the conditional use process exists, so you can look at it and have the public weigh in on whether it's a good place for them or not, and then you decide based on that. And there is a mechanism also. I'll just mention that if, say, one party isn't happy, they can still appeal to the city council. But the conditional use permit is exactly for what you're using it right now, which is considering whether this is the appropriate place for this or not. So, okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Now I'll start on mine. Mr. Warman, if you'll step up, I have some questions for you. Or if you just hold the mic.
Right now, the quorum of four all have to vote yes for this to pass.
I'm sorry, what?
Do all four of the commissioners of the quorum have to vote yes for this to pass, right?
I believe that is the case. No?
Majority.
You have to have majorities. So four commissioners would need to vote.
Matt already voted there, so I don't know if we're just wasting time here or what.
Well,
but I would love to answer your questions.
You're not wasting time as long as you're telling us, because this, we want to know exactly, and that's why I've been writing notes and trying to listen to all these people. Okay. Security seems to be a major issue. Do you know yet what the proposed fence will be protecting the people to the north of you? Is that going to be the 6 foot, the 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot? What kind of fence is that?
Without city approval, I don't think we can go above 8. So we're probably looking at 8.
I believe that's correct without a variance.
Okay, 8 is the thing. Okay.
But the ground is set 3 feet below the road level. 8 is going to make you a 5-foot fence.
Well, view-wise, but they're going to still walk down because it's going to be sitting 15 feet, I believe, off the property line, from what I've been reading on one of these papers, 10 to 15-foot setback. So it will be, there'll be a space, a moat per se of just dirt, but a space where it will be a 6 or 8 foot fence. It'll still be maybe only 5 feet from the road looking over the top of it, but that's Okay, so you've told us that the buildings are secure. This plastic, fiberglass, whatever this stuff is, polycarbonate, is strong enough to withstand as much as a metal building would withstand.
I would say it's probably just as difficult to get in one of those greenhouses as it would be a metal building.
Okay.
If somebody wants to get in, they're going to get in. But, this facility would be covered with cameras 24/7.
Will there be people working at the facility 24/7?
No.
There'll be no
usually
security
about
at night?
7 to 7, depending on the time of the season, but there'll be nobody there working overnight.
There'll be nobody working?
Other than possibly an armed guard.
Will there be lights on that can be visible outside the buildings 24 hours a day?
Not 24 hours a day. There'll be supplemental lights when the sun's short that we have to fill in to get maybe 3-4 hours of extra light a day. But they will not be running in the greenhouse 24 hours a day.
But they'll be working in the wintertime, possibly when there's less sunlight during the day.
Correct. We
And
have
how-
to have light on the plants at least 12 hours a day at certain points of the process. So
Any idea how many lumens are put out by those lights? Are it's very bright? Is it going to be something that's going to be noticeable to the neighborhood? Is it going to glow in the dark?
I wouldn't say it's going to glow. I mean, you're going to see light. It's going to be visible, but I wouldn't think it would disturb the neighborhood. I mean, we're not going to light up the whole neighborhood.
Okay. How many employees you intend to work there? Do you have any idea?
No, initially probably 10.
Okay, normal 10. All right, let's talk about water. That seems to be a major interest of all these people is the water. You currently have a residential use well on the property?
We do.
Is that correct? Which pumps? How many
Well, I don't know if
gallons?
it's residential use or not. There's a well on the property.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, I see you're in the back. Is that a residential use well on that property, or is it a agricultural well? Okay. Do you have any idea how many gallons per minute or hour it pumps? Okay. Do you have any idea how many gallons?
I do not.
Do you have any idea how many gallons of water you're going to need to feed these plants? If you're at what you estimate to be your beginning, opening, startup, if it's 7,000 square feet or 14,000 square feet?
A couple hundred gallons a day to start.
A couple hundred gallons a day?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's a normal residential house use per day?
I couldn't tell you that. I know offhand. I looked up 5-minute showers, about 20 gallons.
Okay. I know my water bill has a lot of water on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And our type of system is a drip watering, so it's not it's not flood watering. We're very conservative with our watering. Yeah.
The average house uses about 150 gallons a day when there's 2 people living there. And that includes laundry, dishes, baths, about 150 gallons a day.
About my insert, I mean, we'll probably be double that. But if we put in, say, 3 more houses on that property, they'll be using more water than we would use in our agricultural.
Mr. Hanson, is using these wells for agricultural purposes, is that going to require a different permit from ADEQ because it's now being used for growth, crop growth rather than residential use?
That is outside of the city's jurisdiction.
Okay. Activities at night, you're saying there probably won't be any activity at nighttime other than possibly a guard on the property?
Correct.
Because you'll be using security, will be cameras and other things to protect the property so no one will have to be on site, hopefully.
Correct. And there's been quite a bit of comments about security. And I'd like to say, there's 4 facilities here in Coolidge now, and I don't think they've ever had to call the police once. I don't think the police have been out to any of these facilities in the several years, 5 years they've been in operation. They've never had any issues. I have never seen any reports of any cartel robbing a state licensed facility. The current facilities around town, they do not get much activity, let alone anybody scouting it out to rob it. If anything, it makes the neighborhood way more secure. There's been a lot of talk about, what was the word? Undesirables? Maybe that wasn't the word, but, you know, the only people coming and going from this facility are our farmers, and it's an agricultural business. And I look at it as an agricultural community. This is agricultural zone land. What we want to do is grow a product that helps a lot of people. When we were looking for a place to do it, we were looking for 5 acres with a well zoned agricultural, and there's not much out there. This is what I found. To me, I don't think if I was going to put up a bunch of greenhouses and grow tomatoes on this property, would everybody be objecting to that? So I don't think it's, I wonder if it's the fact that I am wanting to grow medical marijuana on this property. If I were to put up a couple big greenhouses and grow tomatoes, I wonder if everybody would show up to object to that too. Well, either is marijuana, but I'm in the business, man. I can tell you it's not.
I appreciate the comments, but let's go through this.
But that's my thing. If you have greenhouses out there full of tomatoes, would anybody object? But due to the fact that it's medical marijuana is the issue. Yeah. So I don't get it.
Just in a second. I get my.
This is a medicine that helps.
The public session is kind of ended now, so I just want to get my part of this.
Okay, let's do it.
One of the things on this, I saw the city would like a setback of 75 feet. Is that correct?
One of the recommended conditions of permit is donation of 75 feet of right-of-way along Attaway Road. This would be a requirement we would impose on any business that try to develop here. It's in line with our comprehensive transportation plan, which envisions Attaway Road ultimately as a principal arterial requiring 150 feet of right-of-way total for a 6-lane road.
How is that going to affect the house at number 1 Bond Lane that they live in? Are they within 75 feet of that road?
They are not. There's already 33 feet of right-of-way on that road.
Okay.
So we're looking for a total of 75 on this property. As the area develops, we will get it on both sides of the road. It's long-term transportation planning, standard conditions we would apply to any development.
And a road can be jogged to go around like the freeway does. So if in the future, if there's houses there, ADOT may decide to go, around it and buffer the houses like they do in Phoenix, put up a wall or somehow protect it. So
I'm sure they're looking forward to that.
Yeah, on this.
Well, that's way in the future.
On this piece of land here, the closest structure to the road is about 125, 130 feet from the center line of the road.
And that's the brick garage?
That's correct.
Okay. Next question is noise. I don't know anything about what you're doing, okay? I know there's several plants in town. I've sat on boards where we've approved those, and I'm in favor of growing marijuana. I don't care. I'm not going to use it. But how much noise is generated by fans, humidifiers, and that kind of stuff that the neighbors are going to know? Any noise at all?
Very little noise. Mostly, if anything, HVAC would probably be the noisiest thing out there, and that's not noisy. I don't know if anybody in the audience had taken the time to go by any of the other facilities in town, but you can go sit out in front of those, you don't hear a noise. Coolidge Avenue. I think we got 6. Yeah, but you don't hear it from the road. No?
Okay.
Well,
that's all my questions for you at this moment. I mean, come on, go ahead and have a seat. I'm just. Mr. Hanson, this is zoned agricultural.
Correct.
On an agricultural zoning, what are the options of the owner? What could they potentially put there that might be of a business nature that would be legal to put on that property?
Agricultural zone permits single-family dwelling units, agricultural activities, and public parks. Agricultural activities could be a cattle feed yard, a tractor sales place, a rodeo,
you could put a
chicken farm.
You could put a business sales, tractor sales place on an agricultural zone lot?
Tractor sales could be argued to be an agricultural activity.
We'd probably need to look at that, because we may not agree on that. So,
Yeah, I was going to say that. Probably I wouldn't agree with that.
I
You know,
I
got
was-
it written down.
I will cite as an example as you're driving into Casa Grande and you notice the big tractor sales place.
Yes, sir.
That's zoned ag.
But that is completely surrounded by ag.
and that's county, I think.
It's principally permitted, so
Again, it's principally permitted, but it is surrounded by agricultural
it is.
units. Okay? I don't think that the farmer that lives half a mile to the east of that is going to complain too much about that, although he probably complains about everything else, so he might.
Possible.
Okay,
I don't know how much he complains.
Oh, I do, at everything.
So the tractor sales may be debatable. You could do a cattle feed yard, you could do rodeo type activities, you could do chicken farm, you could put greenhouses with tomatoes in them. I mean, there are agricultural industries that are permitted by right in this zone. Medical marijuana cultivation, as you know, conditionally permitted in ag and industrial only, which allows the public input. The other ones don't do this process. They just go in.
Does anyone have a comment? Okay, well, I have a couple, and I'm going to quit. The question was, have you committed to buy this, have you already purchased this property? Are you committed to purchase it, and what would be a backup if you, what would be your other plan? Chicken farm or feed?
We have not closed on the property. We intend to. There's no contingency on approval of the CUP, so I'm purchasing it regardless of the outcome here tonight.
Well, then you don't have to tell me. You can do anything you want.
Exactly, and I have a few different plans, options, if it doesn't go through, and
Like I said, feed lot, chicken feed farm, whatever you want, greenhouse for growing tomatoes, if that's what you want.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Warman. I appreciate your time and giving me that. I personally am against this. I'm sorry. To me, it's a residential area, and that's a commercial business. Buildings like that, I feel, are commercial in nature, and none of the people that live around that are in favor of it. There's not one neighbor that said, yeah, I'd love to have this in my neighborhood. So they bought those houses without the theory that this was going to become a commercial area, and I don't think any of them want that to change.
I consider this an agricultural business, and this whole property, this whole area right here is surrounded by farms. They're growing whatever they're growing. I want to do the same.
I understand.
No objection to medical marijuana. This isn't an objection to anything else.
Well, it's an objection to having large buildings, I think, blocking the view out of their homes to the south. That is probably the biggest objection, and that it's more of a commercial business than growing cotton is, or hay, or soybeans for that matter, whatever it is, or tomatoes. Okay? Yeah. That's correct. I don't know. I don't know what height you could make them. Yeah, if it was agricultural, if it was all surrounded by farms, I don't know that there'd be anybody sitting here complaining as much. The fact is, none of the residents would be here.
I agree.
Okay, but we do have two farmers that farm adjacent to the property, and they both are against it. Okay, and so there is opposition from other farmers of having a medical marijuana facility in a traditional agricultural area. Okay, and at that I'll stop. I call for a motion. If there's no other discussion from the, do we have a motion to either approve or deny Coolidge PZ 180408?
I move that we deny Cool PZ 1804-08 CUP.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion has been made and seconded, and in favor, all have said aye, and the motion is carried, and to deny the approval of Coolidge PZ 180408. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Next.
Chair, if you'd like to turn it back over to the
I
Vice
would.
Chair.
Yep.
And
Chairman
go on
Howard,
item
I'm
number
done.
3.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolin. We'd like to move on to Cool PZ 180409, a rezoning request initiated by the City of Coolidge for 203 West Coolidge Avenue, which is approximately 19,601 square feet of land located near the intersection of Coolidge Avenue and Main Street, changing the zoning from general industrial I2 to general business C2, legally described as follows: lots 1, 3, and the east half of lot 5, block 3 of the Seago edition, according to plot of record on file with the county recorder, Pinal County, Arizona, recorded in book 2 of maps, page 2. Chairman, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lopez for discussion.
Yes, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hanson, our specialist over here.
Thank you, Director Lopez, Vice Chair Halby. I'm going to save us a little time on this one and the next 2 items. We'll get to those, but the backstory on it is all the same. This park is owned by the city. The next item is across the street. The item after that is next door. They're all zoned industrial, I2. As part of our general plan, this whole area is designated downtown core, not industrial uses. We're looking to slowly phase some of this stuff over to commercial from the industrial uses. Most of these parcels, the sizes of them, don't suit industrial uses anyway. We have a potential use in one of these properties that needs to be rezoned to accommodate such use, which we'll hear at a later time. The city decided to go and throw our properties here in that. So we're just trying to bring our zoning more in line with our general plan and what you would, a more compatible zoning with the downtown area than the industrial zoning that's there now.
Could we grow medical marijuana there?
Currently, yes, you could apply for a conditional use permit to grow medical marijuana in the I2 zoning district. The C2 zoning district would only permit a dispensary by conditional use permit.
I2 would allow it, C2 would not.
Correct. Okay. Pretty much from 3rd Street, at least to the railroad, on both sides of Coolidge Avenue is zoned I2, and they could all be applied to grow medical marijuana there.
And a variance is required for any place that has medical marijuana inside the city limits?
A conditional use permit is required.
Conditional use permits.
Correct. They are not allowed by right. No medical marijuana uses are allowed by right in the city. They all require conditional use permit.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Cool PZ
Excuse
1804.
me, Commissioners, you want to open a public hearing real quick on this and then
Yep.
see if there's any public input and close it then?
I'd like to open it to the public to speak on behalf of Cool PZ 18409. No? Okay, we'll close the hearing to the public. Oh, please.
So I own the property right there on Coolidge Avenue and, well, right here. 244 West Coolidge Avenue. So my name is Aquilina Mendez Faulkner, and I live in Florence, 28144 North Andy Perry Drive. I was just curious of what the purpose of the rezoning was. So as you stated, the city owns all 3 of those properties, or no?
The city owns 2 of the 3 cases we're going to talk about. But to give you some context, last year we rezoned the building you're in from industrial to commercial, allowing the use that you are doing.
Okay.
When it was zoned industrial, you couldn't have done what you're doing there because it wasn't allowed. The industrial zoning that's applied to these properties now allows for heavier uses. The commercial we are requesting, less intensive and more in character with what we envision for this area of town.
I was just curious if there was like already a plan of what to do, you know, especially with the park, of turning the park into like a business, like if you guys already had a plan or a projected idea.
The park is going to stay the park. There's no plans for it. It's not going to change anything. It's really just to overall help the area comply. The building next to the park, which is the third case, well, immediately adjacent to it on the west side, third case we're here, there's a church and food bank that desire to go in there, and they're not permitted in the industrial zones.
All right. I was just curious of what was, you know, the overall idea for that area, if you guys knew, and I wasn't sure. I didn't know that the city owned that. Well, I knew the city owned the park, but I just wasn't sure what the idea was for it, and just with being a business owner in that area, I was just kind of wondering what was coming in or what the projected idea was for it. So that was all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Open it up to Chairman. Gentlemen, any questions? No?
Nope.
Can I get a motion?
I move that Cool PZ 180409, be approved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Motion carried. Great. So, Tim, is it letter D and E, the next two that
D and
we
E,
talked about?
you will still need to
Still read them, though?
read the request and open the public hearing on each. I can
Okay.
answer specific questions to each site if you have any.
Mr. Chair, just go down and the first paragraph, I don't think you need to read the legal description and then open up the public hearing.
Okay, very good. All right, this one's for Cool PZ 180410. I'm sorry, 180410. A rezoning request initiated by the City of Coolidge for 225 West Coolidge Avenue, which is approximately 2,800 square feet of land located near the intersection of Coolidge Avenue and Main, changing the zoning from general industrial I-2 to general business C2, legally described as follows. Director Lopez?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, this is like as Mr. Hanson talked about, this is just the city initiating the request to change zoning and bring it more in line with what the uses are envisioned by the general plan. So it basically brings it from heavy industrial into a general business. And so all we'd ask you to do is open the public hearing, see if anybody has any comments, and then close it, and then take a vote. Or answer any questions anybody may have.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if you want to open the public hearing.
We'll open it to the public. No? No comments? We'll close the public. Open it to the board.
I move that Cool PZ 180410 be approved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on. Cool PZ 180411, a rezoning request initiated by the City of Coolidge for 224 West Coolidge Avenue, which is approximately 14,060 square feet of land located near the intersection of Coolidge Avenue and Main Street, changing the zoning from general industrial I-2 to general business C2, legally described as follows. And again,
Mr. Chair, same issue here. City initiated bringing the zoning down to commercial. So we'd ask you the same thing, open it up for public hearing, take in public comments, close it up, take a vote.
Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody want to step up to the podium? No? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Open it up. Anybody want to make a motion to pass Cool PZ?
I move that Cool PZ 180411 be approved.
I second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The last one, CoolPZ 180412, Rural Design Code. A public hearing to discuss implementing rural design standards for subdivisions having lots of 1 acre or more as an alternative to the current subdivision code. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we've had some discussion with some developers in the rural areas, and just as staff, we've seen it. Tim's brought it up to me when I became director on some of the issues in the rural areas, that we apply the inner city codes with curb and gutter and all those things. And when we look at the rural areas kind of to the east of the city, we have some farming, ranchette type properties that are, more than 1 acre and they're large. And to put in curb and gutter in those and to the extreme of what we do in the city doesn't make sense. You see this type of thing and this type of allowance for a lesser intense streetscape and all that stuff. And even in places I think like Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, you'll see that the houses are darker, don't have all those sidewalks and everything that we need in the city. So this is a discussion issue for you. And Tim, you'd like to add anything to that? We have people in the audience probably that'll comment on this that we talked to.
Yeah, we have talked to several people, live in rural areas, develop in rural areas, sell land in rural areas. When you live out Vaughn Avenue, which we were talking about tonight, developing that was developed in the county prior to the split. Splitting those properties and building those houses, had that be done in the city now, we would require that road to be paved, a minimum of 28 foot back of curb gutter, sidewalk, street lights, the whole 9 yards. When you're moving out and buying those larger lot properties, arguably, those are not the amenities most people are looking for. It really increases the cost of the property because of those improvements that have to be made, paving and all your landscaping and sidewalk, and guess who pays for that? The people buying the houses for something you didn't want anyway. So based on air quality standards and things like that, we can't just de facto go, okay, we're just going to blade in dirt roads and start building stuff. There needs to be some kind of road standard. I mean, we do extend city services here. Trash trucks need to go out there without getting stuck. Fire trucks, make sure bridges over or culverts over ditches have adequate rating capacities, and some kind of surface double chip seal compaction rates or something on the roads to support those heavier vehicles. This is a discussion item only based on commission and public feedback from this meeting. We will formulate an ordinance to again debate and refine, and hopefully by the end of this year we can have an alternative to our subdivision design guidelines that are really the only alternative we have now. So we bring this looking for ideas from the commission, ideas from the public, and to take those ideas and shape them into a policy that satisfies both sides mostly.
So, Mr. Chair, if you'd like, open it up to the public hearing so the public can probably have some ideas that we look at.
I think we have some public that wants to speak.
We do.
I actually did come to talk about more than just medical marijuana tonight.
Please, sir, state your name again.
My
just
name's
for the record.
Noah Hiscox.
Thank you.
I live in the Coolidge area. Do we not have any rural design now, or is the design, the requirements, regardless if it's 1 acre or more, to require a subdivision?
Vice Chair, if I may answer that. Our code currently, a subdivision is defined as improved or unimproved lands divided for the purpose of financing, sale, lease, or building into four or more tracts, lots, or parcels or if a new street's involved, or if the boundaries have already been fixed by a recorded plat.
So the keyword would be 4 or more.
You can do 2 if it needs a new road and now it's a subdivision. Whether private or public road, it makes no difference.
Let me clarify that. So let me grab a number. Let's say
Sure.
we have 10 acres, and you divide that into 3 parcels. 3 3 1/3 acre parcels. Would that fall under the?
It would not be a subdivision as long as all 3 of those properties have legal access to their property adjacent to an existing road. If you have to cut an easement up through the middle of 1 or 2 to access the back one, that's a new road, that's a subdivision.
Okay, so then the next question is when you sit down to set these design standards, could you let us know so we can have some input?
That's what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking for input on we're not changing the definition of subdivision. Our definition matches what's defined at the state level. It's actually word for word.
Well, then I'll just give an opinion then.
Yeah, it's chip seal or
But
if
we
you like
want-
whatever. Yeah, ideas.
Instead of making your 3 parcels you're talking about, if you made that new road, that road would have to be the requisite width according to city standards, vertical curb and gutter, sidewalks, landscaping, fire hydrants every X amount of feet, street lights, and those would be all required for you. And if you chose to split that land without doing those improvements, the poor guy who buys that land can't get a permit until all those improvements are made.
That's currently the law.
That's currently the way it works.
But the purpose of this meeting is
Is to develop different standards than those curb, gutter, sidewalk, pavement, street lights. A looser standard, a more rural standard where this would apply. Our traditional code is still gonna be valid within town. We're talking rural areas zoned agriculture, and the lots are 1 acre minimum size. If you had 1 acre minimum size in a R1 single family residential district, these would not apply to you. You will still do curb, gutter, sidewalk, street lights. We're talking strictly the rural character land to apply this to, which we have lots of.
And you'd have to build a site-built house. No mobile homes or manufactured homes on that property. Under current
Zoning.
Okay. And so road widths, there are minimum road widths, and
That's what we're looking input for. We have standards now for town that specify minimum road widths based on the designation of the road. Is it a collector street within a subdivision or a local road? Is it Coolidge Avenue, which is minor arterial, which is wider?
well, I would suggest that the rules be aligned more closely with what the county requires.
We could definitely look at that.
Yeah.
The county, as long as the properties are an acre or larger, and you don't split them more than 4 times, then none of those requirements are necessary. As long as there's access I'll give you the same example, a 10-acre parcel, and you divide it into, well, let's say 4 parcels. As long as you divided it in 4 or less parcels, then you're okay with the county standard. And as long as you provide road access to each one of them, then you're still fine. You're really, there's a lot of Coolidge that's out in the country.
Agreed.
And if you applied the same standards as the county has, I think everybody would be pretty happy. That'd be an easy suggestion on my part.
and possibly less confusing.
Because people understand that already, and they actually make that assumption, quite frankly. Many places, it was county, it was accessed by the city. They never dreamed that those new restrictions would apply out in that rural setting.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Hitchcock.
Please step to the podium. Give us your name and address, please.
Mike Brinkroff, live out on Nafziger Road from Coolidge here. I spoke with Tim and Gilbert extensively. I'm pretty much a nuts and bolts guy. And just so the council understands, I live off of Nafziger Road, which is a dirt road. If I were to buy 5 acres, the way the code is written right now, just so you guys, get a grasp of how impactful this is on somebody building in the town of Coolidge in the rural area. If I had 5 acres and I wanted to put my house as far off on Nafziger Road as I possibly could, and I had 1,000 feet of driveway, the way code is written right now with the city of Coolidge, I'd have to pave that driveway or concrete it all the way to my house. Well, that cost right there is about $80,000 for the driveway. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating cost. That is a hard cost. Now, you can go on the other side of Valley Farms or out to Florence and not have to pay any of that. And Tim and I have talked extensively. There needs to be some kind of guidelines, even in the rural areas, for emergency vehicles. Fire trucks got to be able to get to the house. Police. There needs to be some guidelines, of course. Like Mr. Hiscock says, the county really doesn't have any rural guidelines. As long as you stay within the legal splits, you can kind of have your road to where if you want an AB road, they don't really monitor that. But I do think there needs to be some, minimum standard of road, 4 inches of AB on compacted soil or something written like that. But, myself, Mark McVicker here, we're both small contractors. We aren't D.R. Horton. We're, not Pulte. We make a living by buying a 5-acre piece, splitting it up 2 or 3 times within our legality, and building, 2,000 to 3,000 square foot homes, which are about $350,000 homes. And that's a good tax base to have here. Now, if we're having to put in streets and sidewalk and curb, we can't afford to build in the city of Coolidge. So myself right now, I'm out in Cactus Forest because I literally cannot afford until we get this resolved. I would love to be building here in Coolidge, but until we get this resolved with the rural communities. Now, it's not just Mark and I. Mark and I both live in this town and reside here. Kids go to school here. We want to see this growth come to Coolidge and the rural area. I mean, it's an attractive place to be, all the farm fields, but as small contractors, we literally cannot afford to do it in Coolidge right now with the way the codes are. So,
please.
A suggestion might be, because you're going to have to define the area that the city zoning doesn't apply, if it's out in the rural. Possibly, if the city does not supply water and sewer, then it could possibly fall into that category that would be the same as the counties rather than the cities. That might make it a little bit easier to define where would it apply and where it doesn't apply.
Thanks, sir. Please.
My name's Mark McVicker, and I'm a small builder, and I live here in Coolidge too. I was born and raised in Florence, Arizona, and 14 years ago I bought 11.25 acres to build 4 homes on, and the economy went bad. So I built the first house, which is 3,400 livable, and it's 7,400 under roof on a dirt road, a little small. It's called Lone Star Lane. It's at Coolidge and Attaway Road. Since then, I applied for a permit to build another house that is 2,100 square foot behind my house. 14 years ago, I put in a 30-foot easement on the side of the property so that I could have access for the 4 homes with a 30-foot road. And I planned on doing AB or crushed granite on a compacted road. And with the way the statutes are now, I would have to pave not only the little road that I'm putting in, but I would have to pave a Lone Star Lane, which is a city-owned road. out to Attaway where it's paved. So you got pavement to dirt, to a dirt road, and I already have a home there, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 big homes, kind of high dollar homes in that area. And so now all of a sudden I'm gonna have to do all of the same with the concreting the driveways. Instead of doing, like this has got a 3-foot or a 3-car garage, instead of doing like a 30-foot deep pad of concrete in front of the driveway, I would have to concrete the driveway about 250 yards, 300 yards out to a dirt road, to a paved road. So as far as trying to build this kind of a home, and I'm a small builder, I build 3-4 homes a year, maybe. It's impossible to recoup that because the other homes in the area aren't going to appraise for enough to accommodate absorbing that kind of cost just on the road itself, let alone curb and gutter or anything like that. It's a dead-end road. It's just going to access 3 homes. It's 30 foot wide. It's going to have access for a fire truck, ambulance, anything like that. Even if somebody else was on the road, they could pass them and go to the residence, unlike some of the rural areas that are already done now. So I would really like to see it get changed before I finish this house. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public? Close the public hearing. Oh, one more.
Dustin Hens. From talking to Tim, and I don't know how we would structure this on some of the bigger acres, because the way I understand it, if your parcel is in city limits, you only get 1 split. Is that correct? To create 2 parcels before you trigger subdivision?
It depends. It could
Only
happen at 4.
You can do 4 if you're creating a new road, correct?
If you create a new road, it's a subdivision, no
So,
matter how many you're doing.
I don't know if we could structure it on some kind of sliding scale, because right now, if we adjust it to same as county where you get 5 splits, that would work as well. Because basically, say Noah wanted to split his property, he can only create 2 40s and stop there. It's the same as the guy that owns a 10 to create 2 5s. So what I'm saying is, you're going to get down probably to your 1 1/4 to your 2 1/2 5s before somebody's going to come in and build a house on it. And at this point, you'd be so far away by getting a 40 down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it probably will be between what the county allows and what we need as a city, and because of the fire truck and some of the ambulances. Because I was the chief deputy zoning inspector for planning and zoning in the county back in the 80s, and I used to we used to do land splits and all that, approve them, but there's no fire service, and they were way out in the middle. There's no way to get that kind of service out. They'd drill a well, share it between 4 landowners, and that's how it would go. And then it just had to change ownership, and you could split it another 4 times. And all we made sure of is that it wasn't the same person creating more than 3 splits or 4. And then, if it changed ownership, then they could do their splits. So it's because there's nothing out there, but people wanted to live there. That's fine. So that's how the county dealt with it back then. But as we get into the city, we'll need to have a little more, as Tim said, some other type of a surface that can hold the weight of the truck. And there's a lot of materials out there, so we can look at Queen Creek, some of the other cities that have done some things like that to try to keep a rural look, and still have something strong enough to run a truck down. So that's what we'll be looking for, and ideas you may have or things you see. But we'll be looking at that, and the chip seal option maybe with no curb and gutter, maybe that's a solution for some parts of it. So we'll look at everything, trying to bring something back to you that you can look at. But we wanted to hear from the public so we can see how important it is. And the houses they're building out are beautiful. I mean, I'd live in one of those in a heartbeat. Be out there. It's really nice.
I have one more thing to add to what Dustin was speaking on. From what I understand, is pretty much anybody can split their land up any way they want right now. City of Coolidge doesn't really look at it. Now County doesn't really want to look at it. But when you go to get a permit, then you realize, oh crap, I can't do anything with this because it doesn't meet the city's requirements. So I propose just a thought. These minor land divisions can be a really good thing or they can be a really bad thing. A really bad one is out off of Northern and Attaway. That horrible access, but it's pretty much a wildcat subdivision, but there can be really good minor land divisions done. But I think they need to be addressed by, I don't know if it's planning and zoning or create a board with professionals to, from our town to acknowledge these things. How are you going to get emergency access? What is your access? How are you going to split it? I think that's something to be looked at, and whether you're going from 40 acres down to 4/10s or going from 5 acres down to 4 acre and a quarters, I think each one needs to be addressed and looked at, by a board or these minor land divisions just get pushed through the city or into the county, and then they come back and realize, well, I can't do anything with this because it doesn't meet the code requirements. And like I said, they can be really good or really bad, but I think some oversight needs to be seen on that, as far as access to the property, emergency vehicles. How is this going to benefit our town, or is it going to be a hindrance to our town? So just one other thing to what Dustin was saying.
Thank you.
And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to address right now is how can Coolidge become the place where we want to split land, build homes, and become the place to be instead of the place that was.
Vice Chair Halby, if I have some ideas that I'd like to throw out there if I can.
Please.
Speaking to Mr. Brinkerhoff's concern about the MLDs, we used to have in our zoning code, your minor land division required city council approval, which seems excessive. It's not in there anymore, but maybe this board could review those and take a look at them in the context of where they are, what's been approved there, so that we can approve them or make suggestions to allow for orderly access of these rural areas. As far as development of these areas, I don't think if you split 40 acres into 4 10-acre parcels, it should be a subdivision. Let's make some size thresholds where this actually kicks in. We are talking only agricultural areas for this. Zoned ag, minimum 1 acre. Maybe they're 5 acre subdivision lots. We can work through that. To Mr. McVicker's concerns with the driveways and stuff, this is how it is now. Your driveway will connect all the way to the connecting street that you come to. If you set 500 feet off that road, you're going to have a 500-foot driveway. And the intent behind the rule is to prevent tracking onto our paved roads. When it rains twice a year, that you're not driving that mud from your driveway on the paved roads. But the majority of these houses are connecting to a gravel road anyway now, and we're not desiring pavement there. So maybe that driveway should be 1.5 times the square footage of the garage to allow for parking outside the garage. And I don't know, maybe DG or something from there to the connecting road if it's not paved. If the road's paved, it needs to be connected to a paved or asphalt driveway, but that's not going to be the case in a lot of these. Roadways, we really can't just allow dirt roads. ADQ, dust, all these air quality, and I mean, at some point over the next many years, we're going to have to pave our own alleys with something. So we need some kind of compaction on these roads to allow for the emergency services, trash service, and stuff like that with a dust palliative. I don't think it needs to be asphalt, but we need something to keep the dust down, and the base needs to support some of these larger trucks that are going there for emergency response, or the city's not going to maintain these roads.
Cam.
Sure.
You got cement trucks, you got trucks bringing in ABC, you got all kinds of things going in there.
For a limited duration.
For a limited duration.
Those trash trucks are there every week.
Yeah.
And it wears.
Oh yeah.
So we just need something that can support it. I don't think we need curb and gutter. Throw that out completely. I don't think we need street lights. Maybe we still want to have some street landscaping. I suggest we throw that away too. The city's not going to maintain these roads because the city will not take ownership and maintenance of any road that is not built to a paved standard. So it's still going to be up to the residents to maintain these roads and keep them in a passable format. I mean, fire truck can't get there, you should have bladed your road. But having that landscape requirement along the street that the city doesn't maintain, now who maintains that landscaping? This is a rural area. We don't need that same standard as the subdivisions. And those are just some ideas I got. Pick them apart, add to them, throw in some more, and we'll try and gel these all together. This is not going to be something we're going to solve in this one meeting. We'll try and craft some things and bring them back to the next meeting. We may further amend that and bring it back again. And ultimately, once we get through here, we will move on to city council and hold public hearings as well. And ultimately, hopefully we can get something adopted that allows these areas to be developed in an orderly fashion, in a safe manner, which is what the city desires, at a cost-effective point, which is what our local people need. And so that's win-win, the way I look at it.
Yeah, I like Tim's comment on the DG, because I in one of my previous lives, master of all trades, I had a landscape company. I was doing decomposed granite with added stabilizer. It was like concrete. It was so hard. I used a big case tractor, and you could drive on it like a road. I mean, the water would shed off, and it was built that way. It was built to commercial standards, like the city of Chandler, because I was the inspector up there, and I built this thing to be like a road, and it could. So that we could do that combination of those type of things for the driveways, and then the roadways that still look nice, but don't cost as much money. And you just add stabilizer to it; it makes it really hard. It looks beautiful. So different ideas like that we'll bring back to you. It'll be good.
I do know, in talking to the fire chief, he can tell us how many pounds per square inch that road needs to be able to hold in the compaction rates. And there's still work that has to be done. You're not just going to cut in the road and start driving on it, but you're going to have to pave it and put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and all the engineering involved with that as well. So I think we can make this a win-win for everybody with a little work. We can't hear you if you're not at the mic.
We got to tape you.
Just to give an example, I currently split 5 acres out in Cactus Forest, and I'm building 4 houses. I've built 2, working on the 3rd. Lenders now. This is a dirt road off of a paved road. So lenders now require a road maintenance agreement. All 4 of those property owners have to sign, when they close and buy that house, they sign a road maintenance agreement. What basically says the county's not going to maintain it. It is the responsibility of those 4 homeowners to keep that road maintained for emergency vehicles. And lenders are doing it because if there's a fire in the house, and insurance companies are requiring it too, to get to the house. And so I just want to throw that out there. It is something that lenders are requiring, so you just can't put a muddy road going to the house.
Please, sir.
Just to make a point, okay.
The TV doesn't pick you up if you're not talking.
Got to get you on TV.
I live off of Nafziger Road, and I have 800 feet of roadway up to my house, and we put about 1 inch of DG on there, and I'm telling you what, we've got big equipment running up and down there all the time. It's great, just great. The only thing, it will start to get the washboard a little bit on it, but you can knock that off with a scraper, and it's right back to, and you get another rain on it, and it turns right back to concrete again. But it never does slough off at all. It's great, so it's easy.
My experience with DG is that stuff compacts down so hard eventually that weeds won't even grow through it.
Right?
Oh, they won't. You're right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's pretty much all we have, and then whatever comments any members have.
My turn.
Gentlemen, comments?
Anybody?
Ladies?
I got
Get a
lots
new
of
piece
them.
of paper
I've
for
always
you.
got questions. Tim's going to sit back. He's scared now. Okay. 20 years from now, these gentlemen have all built nice houses. Who is going to take possession and pay for those roads 3 owners later? I mean, these houses have been sold and resold, okay? These guys, some of these guys are real estate agents that know that that person's going to stay in that house 3 to 5 years. They're going to move again. Is the city going to pay to put in a full road there somewhere down the road? Is that going to be some kind of assessment that will go against those people? I mean, I don't blame these guys. How can you build 4 houses and put in $80,000 worth of infrastructure just for the road? Nobody's going to buy it. So who's going to pay for it? Are we the city, going to pick up that tab?
If I may, Vice Chair Halby, no, we're not. The city's never going to pave that road, ever. There will be some kind of road agreement that goes like the well agreements that you agreed and signed to when you purchased your property, and it conveys to your successors and assigns. It'll always be a private road. The city would take over maintenance of that road should you and maybe your neighboring property owners pave that road, add curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and bring it up to that standard that the city will then assume maintenance for. Until then, it's a private road.
There's a private road basically forever, whether it's got a name on it, a street name, or not, doesn't make it.
Street names and addresses are for 911 purposes. They do not indicate ownership or maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, something could be like an improvement district. So say that the property owners have real nice homes, and you know you buy an Aston Martin or a Lamborghini that's going to hit the rocks.
My Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to put a nice road, so all 3 neighbors decide to form an improvement district and pave that road to a higher standard. They could do that. They do that up in the valley. Businesses do that. They create their own improvement districts, business improvement districts. So that's a tool that could be used for that in the future. And the cities would allow it.
Ken, if I may, I want to tag on something Ken just added. So, I grew up here in Coolidge. My aunt used to live on Ray Road and Gilbert Avenue. She had a beautiful 2-acre lot. Very rural. All the neighbors wanted to keep it rural. They didn't have paved roads. They didn't have curbs and gutters. Kind of very similar to what we're talking about right here. I remember about 15 years ago when they came in and the city said, you know what, we're going to curb it and we're going to gutter it and we're going to pave it, and the city had to do it because the developers didn't get forced to do it when they first built the homes. And they assessed the homes, and all of the people that own those homes had to suck it up and pay for that paving.
And that could happen if a PM10 issue, the air quality people, like Tim was alluding to. That's why we can't go really all dirt, because we're under a mandate by the EPA, the Phoenix metro areas. You've seen the pollution, ozone warnings, all that. So in Glendale, where I worked before, we paved the alleys in certain parts of town with federal money, community development block grant, to keep the mud down and have access. Cause some people had access from the back of the properties, apartments in the older parts of town. So the city used federal money to do that. So, I mean, there's never say never, I guess, is it could happen, I mean, in the future, but right now we're looking to develop those properties, for a rural lifestyle. So, yeah, and maybe by then we'll be driving hover cars and we'll just drive above the be about dust.
When we approve these subdivisions that they want to build, will the road width at least be determined, that they will build it at a certain width so that down the road, however many years before the homeowners decide to pave it, that road will be wide enough to be paved?
That is one of the standards we would like to implement, the minimum pavement or surface width along with minimum ingress egress requirements for the easements. Is that going to be, does that easement need to be 50 feet wide? Is 30 adequate? 40? I mean, what's that number?
Yeah.
These areas, it's very unlikely that it will ever need to be more than 2 lanes unless it changes in such character so drastically that it's not residential anymore.
Right.
And at that point in time, that commercial developer is going to build real roads.
But I know you're aware, and I know some of these gentlemen are aware of the problem that we have on the east side of town, where some of these small subdivisions, these 4 houses in a group have put together, and there is no real access to get into those properties by any major large truck or a fire truck.
That is correct.
That was done before the city it was in that property, I understand that.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
That's exactly what
our
we're talking
watch.
about. And I would like to see, as part of these standards developed, that someone, whether it's administratively within development services or perhaps this commission themselves, reviews these minor land divisions, takes them in the context of the larger picture. What's already approved here? Where is the access now? Maybe your access isn't on your south line. Maybe you need to flip this from the north line because that's what we approved last time. And so that we can, it's not a formal subdivision, but we can let this development, aid this development in occurring in a more orderly fashion, so that we don't get this situation we have east of town where, yeah, you're in the city, but you can't have fire service because our truck can't get there.
Yeah.
And that is something that has happened. We have a builder who's pulled some permits out there, and prior to pulling the permits, he had to improve the crossing over the ditch to be adequate width and structure to support a fire truck. And he worked with development services and the fire chief and public works to engineer and improve that crossing, and he has pulled those permits now on a split that was created in the county, and we subsequently annexed in, like most of that area. But it is not the only nightmare story out there for access. We want to be better than that.
And the width should include some room to put in utilities, cable, gas lines, all those things too. So it'll be a little wider than just the 2 lanes, just to accommodate that, so there's room for the utilities, so that we know what those standards are, generally speaking, so we can go by those.
And so,
yeah,
we're not looking to figure this all out tonight. We're starting this discussion. We'd like to get this rolling. If you guys have ideas on the commission about this stuff, call me, drop me email, and let's get something going. Same to the public. Most of you guys know how to get a hold of me. And we'll work through this, and we'll get something that makes everybody just a little unhappy, and then we'll have something good.
There you go.
Right in the middle.
And that's really all I got for now. Unless you have questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer them.
I would just add that I'm not a developer or a realtor, I'm just a cop, but I would say that the reason we chose to come to Coolidge is because of the way the community is now. And I hope before I retire to get out, further out than where I am now. Any way we can get these gentlemen to build more houses, tax base, because I think it's cool. You get out of town and there's these homes, these custom homes, and to keep that rural nature to what we have here, not a high density mess. I think Coolidge is a great place to live. I'm from Casa Grande, so I'd never live here, but here I am, big old Casa Grande.
If we don't put all these requirements on, maybe one day me and you could afford to go out
There you
and
go.
buy one of those.
No, I think it's great. Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said before, this country's built on gentlemen that swing hammers and are self-employed. So, whatever we can do to get that rolling, I'm all for it. There's got to be a best practice model. Are there other municipalities you're looking at that?
We surely aren't the first people to deal with this.
No.
I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but let's get something that works for us.
Yeah, we can look at things from like National League of Cities. They have cities that do some of the same things. So we can go into some of the data banks that are out there and just look at different things, and plus our own ideas, what we have here.
Well, my wife's got a buddy who lives up at Cave Creek in a $1 million home, and it's dirt road to get up to where she's at.
Some
and
of those areas.
it's been done before, but whatever we can do to help this along would be a great effort.
I'm all for it. I'm the jerk who has to say no when people come in for this, so.
Could we tax?
I'd like to say yes more often.
Could we tax some marijuana to pay for all this? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You have
Different meeting.
a working document next month that will give us some general thoughts about what we've just been talking about, and that they can put input in next month and they can see it?
That is my hope. We may have this public hearing type discussion for the next several meetings, along with many other items that we have going or that the commission has requested.
Yeah, because we could then take items out that we don't agree with and put items in that we've missed.
Yes, I'm not looking for this to be the Tim Hansen code.
I hope not, because this won't be.
Anyway, it would be a good code, though. I mean,
we're not naming any streets in town named Hanson. None of that's going to happen.
It will.
He's a young man.
He's got children.
I named the streets too, so keep that in mind.
All right.
Chairman, that's all we have at this point.
Very good. Any reports from the director?
Commission members, it's late, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
I really don't have anything other than what we did before, and thank you for tonight.
Very
Appreciate all
good.
your hard work.
All right. Call to the public. Open it up for public. Nope. All right. Make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very, very much.